right, joining me now to rip through all the top games on college football's Week 4 schedule and to add some best bets is our guy, Brad Powers. Jake Butt will be with us in the second half of the program today. Brad, how you making out?
Doing well. Looking forward to a good another slate of games here. Waiting for next week's the big one, probably the biggest one of
Ooh,
the season.
let's go. Okay, so if you missed Brad on Monday, he gave out three best bets. Let's recap those quickly. He gave out Miami, Ohio at +3.5. That is now down to +2.5. He gave out Duke -2.5. That is now up to -3.5. Louisiana Tech given out at -3. Now up to -3.5. It pays to watch the Monday show. If you want analysis on those, you can go back and watch that show. Okay, so two more best bets to add here, Brad. Then we're going to rip through the board. These are not big games, but often you will find some beautiful betting opportunities in these under the radar matchups. Let's start with Western Michigan, +14.5. You like them as the underdog.
Yeah, we got a Western Michigan team that hasn't won a football game so far this season. So why are we betting them? Well, the back's against the wall. They played a difficult schedule so far, a pair of Big Ten teams, plus a very good North Texas team that they took to the wire and lost in overtime at home. North Texas might even be better than this Toledo team that they're facing now. Toledo's sitting fat and happy. They've covered all three games. But if you look at Toledo's recent history, last 4 years, Toledo, forget covering spreads. They have lost 15 times outright as a favorite. 9 times laying 7 or more. This has the makings of Toledo a flat spot. Not calling for Western Michigan to win the game outright, but we'll take the home underdog here, getting a little bit north of 2 touchdowns. Western Michigan +14.5.
Okay, next up we have Fresno State inside that key number of 3. They're favored by 2.5 this weekend, and you like them.
I do, and obviously we got a trend here. We're on key numbers. We're taking those critical half points on these key numbers. This one is more of a play against Hawaii. I think there's an overreaction in the market. They're getting back their quarterback, Micah Alihado. It's a high ankle sprain. It's a leg injury. It's probably going to be affecting him all year. So I don't expect him to be 100%, even though he returns after missing a couple of games. But what I got here with Fresno is a team, the statistical profile is better. Both of these teams have played 4 games. So they're better in yards per play margin. They're the better running team. They played a tougher schedule. It's a late one, and I know a lot of people need a bailout game. Fresno State -2.5, best bet.
Okay, not a loaded slate on Thursday or Friday for college football, just 3 total games. Out of those 3, is there anything that stands out to you?
But take a chance on Oklahoma State. Now, I talk about all these great bets that I made and the line moved and whatnot. Well, I made a bet on Oklahoma State on Sunday at -13.5. Market says I'm an idiot because it's down to 11. Am I scared? Well, yeah, you got to respect the market. But with that being said, I got to lean Oklahoma State here. This is a team that got absolutely embarrassed in their last game against Oregon, lost 69-3. They had a bye week to adjust. This is it for Mike Gundy. He either performs decently the rest of the season, or his 2-decade tenure is done in Oklahoma State. I'm willing to give him a chance here at home against a Tulsa team that's just playing with a first-year coach.
Okay, ranked matchup on Saturday. Early start in Utah with Texas Tech in town. Utah's favored by 3, total 57.5. Texas Tech, they've had it pretty easy so far this season. They've been a favorite of 24 or more in all 3 of their games. How do you think that they match up against Utah?
Yeah, I like Utah here. I'm going to lay the 3. Neither team has played that tough of a schedule, so we're going to learn a lot. I think the winner is easily the early favorite to win the Big 12 and grab that, all important playoff berth. But the more proven and trustworthy commodity for me is the Utah head coach, Kyle Whittingham. I like him better than Joey McGuire. I also think Salt Lake City, Utah's home field advantage is a little underrated sometimes in the marketplace. So early start time, 10 a.m. local start. I think it's a little sleepy of a start for both teams, but in the end, I think Utah's got the better defense. We'll lay the 3.
Okay, next up, Arkansas favored by 7.5, taking on Memphis. Total on the high end at 62.5. First time in close to 2 years that Memphis is a home underdog. How do you think they respond?
Yeah, I'm going to lean Memphis here. Great spot for Memphis catching Arkansas at home. Arkansas just played a 60-minute to the wire game against Ole Miss. Arkansas has a huge home game against Notre Dame coming up next. So I don't know if we get the full A effort out of Arkansas here. Memphis has been a really good home team the last several years. I'll take the hook here on a key number. Lean Memphis +7.5.
Okay, a true must-win game for Clemson, considering their start, considering they're favored by 17 and a half, taking on Syracuse, total 55 and a half. Clemson 0-3 against the spread on the season. You think they get their first cover in this one?
I'm not sure. I have my doubts on this
Yeah.
Clemson team because it's not only the fact that they've lost 2 games, they were favored in both, but also look at the Troy game. I mean, you're talking about they were a 31-point favorite in the game, found themselves down 16-0 to start that one. So it's been incredibly bad all 3 games for Clemson. I'm going to go to the total here. I do trust Syracuse's offense. It's number 1 in the nation in passing, so we at least got that. You would have to think that Clemson, if they're going to rebound, it's going to come more on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to lean over 55 and a half, but to be honest with you, I haven't bet the side or total in this game.
Okay, good looking matchup between Auburn and Oklahoma. Oklahoma favored by 6.5, total 47 and a half. Both teams undefeated straight up this season. Oklahoma perfect 3-0 to the under. This is a rematch from last season where Oklahoma won 27-21. What do you make of this game?
I like Auburn plus 6.5. It would be a best bet if I got that all important extra half point. What am
Oof.
I seeing between both teams? Well, you got to be impressed with both so far this season. They both have a decent win already. Auburn went on the road to Baylor, won the line of scrimmage in that game. Obviously, Oklahoma won the line of scrimmage against Michigan. To me, I think both teams have been playing possum a little bit, especially last week. It was just get to this game, do what you had to do to win the game. I worry about Jackson Arnold against his former coach in Venables. But to me, again, a line of scrimmage, I think Auburn's a little bit better, and you're willing to give me almost a full touchdown here. I like Auburn plus 6.5. My power rating's only made it 5.
Okay, next up we have Michigan favored by 2.5, taking on a 3-0 Nebraska team. Total on the low end, 45 and a half. So this is the second big test of the year for Michigan after coming up short versus Oklahoma. Do you think they will pass the test this time around?
It's a different type of game for them, mainly because their head coach Sharon Moore is suspended for Michigan here.
Hmm.
They have an interim in Biff Poggi, and from what I saw last week, looks like they're a little bit more aggressive with Biff Poggi. They're willing to rely on Bryce Underwood's legs more, which they should have done in the Oklahoma game. So I think this is a sneaky one. You're probably thinking Michigan, Nebraska defense, run the football under. I'm going to go over. I do like Nebraska's offense. They put the pedal to the metal, even against 2 overmatched opponents the last couple of weeks. They got, their passing game's much improved over what it's been the last 5-6 years. So with Underwood running around a little bit more than usual and Nebraska having, a competent passing attack, I'm going to go against the grain and go over 45 and a half.
Okay, two teams going in wildly different directions. Primetime Saturday night, Florida taking on Miami. Hurricanes are favored by 7.5, total 50 and a half. You think the Hurricanes keep rolling?
It's a tough one. So I think it's a great game. You're going to get an idea right away if Florida's got it or not. They've already lost 2 games. It's closing in on being a lame duck status for Billy Napier, the head coach. Uh, Market loved Florida. I'm always about getting the best of the number. Market loved Florida last week. So if you want to bet Miami, I would wait a little bit. I think you might get a better number later in the week. What I do know in this game is Florida's defense has been playing lights out. Even in the last couple of games, you look at the loss against South Florida, they only gave up 18 points. Last week, they actually on defense only gave up 13 points because LSU got a pick 6. And that was also with LSU having short fields after 5 interceptions from Florida's DJ Lagway. Miami's much better defensively, so I like under here. I know it's not, the big primetime game. Let's bet lower scoring and a slugfest, but I think that's what we're getting here, like under 51.
Okay, let's talk another ranked matchup. Illinois and Indiana. Indiana favored by 6, total 52 and a half. Both teams coming off shutout wins as big favorites last week. How do you think this one plays out?
Yeah, raise your hand if you had this one, the NBC Saturday night game just a couple years ago. Great for both programs. The winner is going to, feel like they got a really legitimate shot at going to the playoffs. So kudos for that. Neither team's played really anybody with a pulse for the most part so far this season. Full disclosure, numbers matter. I bet Indiana -2.5 earlier in this week. It's blown through 3. It's gone through 4 at the current number of 6. My power ratings show some value here on Illinois. Not one of my favorite plays of the week, but I do lean Illinois +6. I'm not sure that Indiana is what the market's saying 3 points better on a neutral field. Plus, you add in the home field advantage. I'm not buying that at this point, especially since Indiana's played 3 tomato cans.
Okay, let's wrap things up out on the West Coast. USC, all of a sudden, somewhat relevant again, ranked 25th. They host Michigan State. USC favored by 17 and a half, total 56 and a half. Do you think the Trojans keep going in the right direction?
I do. Michigan State's banged up. So if you're wondering why this line has climbed 3, 4 points this week, that's why. We're going to go over. I mean, it's kind of the public play here, considering what USC's done offensively. But I'll actually look at USC's defense, which last week against Purdue, okay, they gave up 17 points. That seems okay. Purdue had 3 turnovers inside the red zone. So I don't know if this USC defense is as good as what the stats say so far this season. I have seen some things that I like out of Michigan State's offense, particularly the game against Boston College a couple weeks ago. So I know what I'm getting with USC's offense, one of the best in the country. I actually think Michigan State's offense is going to have success against USC's defense. Add the two together. Let's go over 56.
Okay, there you have it, Brad. We will leave it at that for this week. Of course, we'll catch up with you again on Monday. Enjoy the games this weekend, and best of luck with all your bets.
Thanks for having me.
All right, join me now to break down all of the latest in college football, including a couple of the top games this weekend. Is our guy, former Michigan Wolverine and Denver Bronco, current analyst at the Big Ten Network, Jake Butt. Jake, what's up? How you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, Joe. Gonna have to check in with me. Maybe shoot me a text Sunday morning or Saturday night. We'll see how that Michigan Wolverine trip to Lincoln, Nebraska goes. So I was at Big Ten Media Days over July, and we have we separate. There's shows where we talk about the teams, and there's show when we do a press conference. So we listen to each coach speak. And when Matt Rule got up there and spoke, we talked about them, and then we opened up their schedule, and I circled that game against Michigan. And then when Sharon Moore got up there and spoke, I circled the game against Nebraska, and I said, guys, this week 4 game is going to be the most important game of each team's season because it's going to be the most revealing game for each team. And people laughed at me at the time, but boy, does it feel like that is exactly what's going on this weekend. Nebraska looking to get over the hump, Michigan trying to find out who they are by, stealing a road win. Man, it's just a good weekend for college football fans.
Okay, so yeah, let's jump right into this game. So nice bounce back by Michigan there last week, a 60-point win over Central Michigan. But as you said, a tough test does await here on Saturday. What's their biggest advantage and disadvantage versus Nebraska here this weekend?
Their biggest advantage is their defensive scheme, their defensive personnel, their defensive coordinator. And then their biggest advantage is what they finally figured out last week. They have the best quarterback that they've ever had in the decorated history of Michigan football. And I know we talked about this last week. I played at Michigan. I've called Michigan games. I've been a fan of Michigan. And what usually happens when they're playing a team like Central Michigan, they can do whatever they want and win. They could run it, they could throw it, they could punt it on second down, and they'd still win. But Michigan tends to just run the ball and sleepwalk to victory, and it's a boring game. They win 35-0, and there's no issues at all. But against Central Michigan, they said, Bryce Underwood, we believe in you. Here's the keys to the program. Let's see how you handle it. I understand Nebraska is going to be a much better opponent. Oklahoma was a much better opponent. Michigan's going to face much better opponents than Central Michigan. But it was really encouraging to see Bryce shine when given more opportunity. His legs are going to be the key element in this game. It wasn't a ton of design quarterback runs, but on multiple third downs, he tucks it and runs and turns the corner. Remember week 1, Cincinnati's quarterback, Brendan Sorsby, ran all over Nebraska's defense. So there's some parallels there. And I'd say on the flip side, here's going to be the chess match, guys. Nebraska runs a 3-3-5 scheme. And you'd think for Michigan, that's easy to run the ball. There's smaller bodies. But the issue is a 3-3-5 scheme. There's just a bunch of bodies, and it's a cloudy, muddy picture. And on the road, it becomes very hard to communicate an ID in your rushing schemes. Who are we doubling to? Who are we blocking? And your pass protection schemes, who's responsible for who? And for a quarterback, who am I hot off of? And then from a coverage standpoint, Nebraska they line up 5 guys right at the sticks, and you just don't know what coverage it is. That's where Bryce Underwood has struggled. So if he can avoid making the big mistake, that I don't care what he does from a ceiling standpoint. If Bryce can avoid making the big mistake, if he can play turnover-free football, that will be key for Michigan. And then the flip side for Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions on the season. He's looked phenomenal. He's been efficient. Michigan's defense thrives by taking the ball away. They're tied for second most turnovers in the Big Ten. I think this is a game that's going to be decided by turnovers, but man, this is a mental battle for Nebraska. I mean, seriously, I know I'm rambling here, but just that's one of the decorated programs in college football. I'm just so excited about this game because they've struggled, and it's been this slow building process where Matt Rule, it's year 3 Matt Rule. I know you've heard of it. They went to a bowl game and won a bowl game last year. They've won their last 2 one-score games. They started off 3-0. This is the litmus test. If you beat Michigan, look at Nebraska's schedule, the conversation then becomes about Nebraska potentially being a playoff team. That's how important this game is this weekend.
Okay, how are we feeling about this spread? Do you agree with Michigan being a small favorite, 2.5 points on the road?
I agree that basically it seems like that's a toss-up. I mean, I guess you could what that spread tells me, if Michigan was home, it'd probably be 5.5 or 6 or maybe close to a touchdown. So I agree with it just because historically Michigan's been the better program. I'd say their roster has more talent. And I do like Michigan in this game, though I do think it's going to be a close defensive battle. I just think Michigan's defensive line is going to be too much for Nebraska. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball consistently. I think Wink Martindale is going to be able to dial up pressure. And that's going to make Raiola's life uncomfortable. And Nebraska's run defense has been very, very shaky. So they're a significantly worse rush defense than Oklahoma was. So Michigan should be able to run the ball, which is scary for the Husker fans, because if Michigan can run it and throw it, they become a really tough offense to stop.
Okay, Jake, let's talk quarterbacks. A lot of these big time quarterbacks coming into the season, they are not living up to expectations 3 weeks in. Out of the big guys who are expected to enter the 2026 NFL draft, who do you think can have success, if anyone, at the next level?
Listen, I'm still really high on Drew Aller. And I think what you have to do is you have to evaluate quarterbacks within the context of their system. And Drew has been, screwed effectively by Penn State. Last year, he literally had no wide receiver help. He was throwing to what we now see one of the best tight ends in football in Tyler Warren. He had no wide receiver help. He's playing in a college gimmicky system. It's really not a great system to try to evaluate and project NFL potential. But Drew Haller has all the arm talent in the world. He's a big, strapping kid. He's got leadership traits and principles. I did a thought experiment as I was looking at your questions this morning. If Drew Aller played on Michigan in the same Michigan system that J.J. McCarthy played in when J.J. McCarthy was picked by the Vikings, that is the system Drew Aller would thrive in. 6'5", 240 pounds, big, strong kid. The ball jumps off his hands. He's excellent off play action. If Drew Aller played in that system, Michigan would have been undefeated. He would have had a national title game. He would have been throwing to open receivers off of play action, and Drew Aller would be the consensus #1 overall pick. But he's playing in a gimmicky Penn State system that makes it hard to evaluate. I still am really high on Drew Aller. I'll also throw out, I know you said guys that are expected to enter the draft. I'm so high on Dante Moore out of Oregon. He's been playing excellent football. In terms of arm talent, he's up there as one of, if not the most talented quarterback in college football. That Will Stein Oregon system has produced Heisman finalists, Heisman favorites, and first-round potential. We saw Bo Nix. Dylan Gabriel improved his draft stock. And Dante Moore, I believe, is more talented, both of them. And this is from the Oregon coaching staff. They said Dante Moore, when it's all said and done, they told us, unprovoked, that he has the chance to be the best that they've seen here. And we know there's been some great quarterbacks to roll through Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah, maybe one of those guys, a future Miami Dolphin. Okay, a couple notable teams so far this season off to slow starts. Which team that's underperformed up until this point of the season do you think that we could be looking at more positively as we approach the later points of the season?
I'm still really high on Notre Dame. My opinion of them as a program hasn't changed, even with the shaky, slow start. I think it's more just a product of what an unlucky draw of playing two of the best teams in college football. One of them being on the road. They're introducing a new young quarterback, a new defensive coordinator. That's still a really talented team. That's still a playoff team. That's a team that's going to win a ton of games and get better as the season goes on. The one concern is I've been shocked by their trench play. When you think Notre Dame, you think dominant offensive line play. Defensive line has not been able to get pressure on quarterbacks, especially when only rushing 4. Sounds like Marcus Freeman is going to commit himself to spending more time with the defense. And if they can find a way to get more pressure, that's only going to bode well for them down the stretch of the season. I'm still high on Notre Dame. And then I'd say Penn State too. They've had dominating victories through 3 weeks to start the season. They're on a bye week and then host Oregon, night game, Happy Valley next week. I believe that they're holding some things back. I believe that they're playing a little bit reserved right now because they don't want to show their hand ahead of Oregon, and that's fair. They could be 3-0 doing whatever they wanted. I think Penn State will have a great game plan for the Oregon Ducks, and if they go out there and play to their potential and win that game, we're right back to saying, look, Penn State, they haven't had a shaky start, right? They're still undefeated, but the conversations are what's going on with their offense. Like, are they really built to win a national title? I believe after the Oregon game, we'll be saying that they are.
Okay, let's get your take on a couple of the top games here this weekend. Let's start things off. Ranked matchup, number 17 Texas Tech versus number 16 Utah. Early start in Utah for this one. Utah favorite by 3. Total on the highest end, 57.5. What do you make of this matchup?
10 a.m. local start.
Mm,
Is absolutely mind-blowing to me.
yeah.
And I can't wait to hear Gus and Joel on the call. As a player, I always liked early starts because you just roll out of bed and play, but there's nothing better than a ranked matchup at night. This is like the exact opposite, a 10 a.m. local start with 2 of the best teams in the Big 12. What I love about this game is the trench play. Utah has one of, if not the best offensive lines in college football. Texas Tech, one of the highest rated defensive lines, both as a unit and individuals. Texas Tech has one of the best run defenses in college football. We know Utah likes to run the football. And really, here's really why I like Utah. One, I think home field plays a big factor for them in a 10 a.m. start. You get to sleep in a familiar hotel. You get to use your facilities. When you wake up in the morning, you get a nice clean breakfast. Everything benefits Utah because it's familiar for a very early and strange start. I also like Utah's offensive line, just in the sense that they're not going to run all over Texas Tech, but they like to go for it on 4th down. They have a good enough offensive line to get them in 3rd and 4th manageables to be able to control the clock. And then that the Utah team has done great against high-level quarterback play. Caleb Williams, 0-3 against Utah. Jaden Daniels, 0-2 against Utah. Jared Goff was 0-1 against Utah. So for Morton, Texas Tech's quarterback, he's been great, but I do lean towards Utah in this matchup. Here's some interesting grades for him. PFF tracks these things, Joe. Morton's grade at home, he has an 80.4 PFF passing grade. That's pretty good. Away, that drops down to 59. Obviously, this is a road game. Here's another strange one. When he's been clean, he's been 80. He has an 86.3 PFF passing grade. Excellent stuff. But under pressure, that drops down to 35.5. So an over 50% reduction in his passing grade. We know Whittingham in Utah is going to bring the heat and pressure him. These are all reasons I like Utah, but probably my favorite bet of this is the under, just because I think it's going to be a slow defensive battle. I think he said 57 points. I like the under in this matchup.
Okay, let's go to primetime Saturday night, Florida and Miami. A sloppy start to the season for Florida. Meanwhile, it looks like a breakout season here for the Hurricanes. They're, of course, favored in this one by 7.5. Total 51.5. What do you make of the Battle of Florida?
This feels like a must win for Florida. It feels like a must play great for DJ Lagway. Miami has that. Okay. I said Utah, one of the best. The reason I have to say one of the best is because I think Miami has the best offensive line in all of college football. And that bodes well for Carson Beck, because when he's kept clean, he has one of the best passing grades in all of college football. He's been phenomenal. And right now, Florida's defensive line, all the talk this offseason was that Florida has one of the best defensive lines in all of college football. That has not looked to be the case. So Miami's offensive line is going to be able to they will be able to keep Carson Beck clean. Carson Beck will be able to then pick apart Florida's secondary. I really like Miami's offense in this game. And then DJ Lagway, who we've expected to take that major jump, clearly he's got all the arm talent in the world. You look at some of these stats, and it's almost a paradox. he's struggled when kept clean, not pressured. So when his PFF grade, when kept clean, okay, not when he's not when he's pressured, when he's kept clean, his PFF grade is a 68.5. That's 103rd among FBS quarterbacks. He also has 7 turnover worthy plays when kept clean. That's 3 more than the next highest Power 4 quarterback. So I love Miami in this matchup for a number of reasons. I just think Carson Beck's going to have time and be able to pick apart the defense. And then DJ Lagway, why are you struggling when you have all the time in the world? It's like mental lapses that you can't have in this matchup. I love the Hurricanes.
Okay, next up, a couple undefeated ranked teams. Number 9, Illinois taking on number 19, Indiana. They're favored by 6 at home, total 52.5. How do you think this one goes?
Stay with me here. Indiana and Illinois is a mock playoff game. Yes, I like Indiana. The Hoosiers, the basketball school, is now a football school because of Kurt Signetti. Brett Bielema has built Illinois the right way. These are 2 complete football teams, 2 great coaches. They kept their coordinators this offseason, 2 of the more experienced teams in college football. Indiana was the darling story of college football, and I like their roster better this year. Illinois, 10-win season, beat South Carolina to get to that 10th win and return some of the most experience in college football. This is going to be a fun matchup. Here's some of the key things. Illinois' defensive scheme. They play aggressive man coverage. It's a 5-man front. They blitz you and they play man coverage outside. They're blitzing opposing quarterbacks at the highest rate in the Power 4, over 60% blitz rate. They also have the 6th highest rate in the Power 4 of man coverage. Okay, I say that to say this. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana, here's his grades when being blitzed. 46th best quarterback in PFF grade when being pressured. When he's not pressured, he has the 2nd highest PFF grade. So 2 different quarterbacks there. Also, when playing against man coverage, 144th highest PFF grade, or lowest, I should say, 144th lowest grade when throwing into man coverage.
Wow.
When throwing into zone, he has the 3rd best grade. So from a matchup standpoint, Illinois' defense is built perfectly to make life hard on Fernando Mendoza. These are small sample size. It's only through 3 weeks. I don't expect Mendoza to have a terrible, terrible game, but I do like the Illini in this matchup.
Okay, it is now best bet time, late night Saturday night. USC suddenly somewhat relevant again, I guess you could say, ranked 25th coming into action here this weekend. They're favored by 17.5, taking on Michigan State. And you like USC to maintain that relevancy, Jake?
I like USC's relevancy to continue to grow and get back towards national relevancy. I think that they are much better than their ranking, and I understand the hesitancy for people to say the Trojans are back. You got to earn it. You got to prove it. It won't. That won't fully happen this weekend, but Michigan State is a better opponent than what the Trojans have seen. Here's why it's a tough matchup. That is a long flight for Michigan State. Long flight going across multiple time zones. That bodes well for USC. USC, Lincoln Riley, Jaden Mayava, their quarterback. This is one of the most explosive offenses in all of college football. They have chunk plays, one of the best wide receiver rooms, probably behind Ohio State in all of college football. Michigan State's secondary has been an issue for about half a decade now. One of the lowest rated, I believe they actually are the lowest rated pass defense in the Big Ten. Not a good matchup for the Spartans. And that leads me to say that USC is going to be able to have a ton of points. On the flip side, I like Michigan State's young quarterback, Aiden Childs. He's a playmaker with a big arm, but his big issue is he has these mental lapses where he throws the ball where he shouldn't. Just random mistakes that come out of nowhere. Michigan State's offensive line is not great in pass protection. And why I'm high on the Trojans this year, it doesn't surprise you when I say that I like their passing game, right? That's to be expected with Lincoln Riley. But the difference that makes me confident in the Trojans this year, they have dominant defensive line play. They lead the Big Ten in sacks, in TFLs. It is a Danton Lynn true defense with the right personnel. I think they're going to get after Aiden Childs. They're going to force him into mistakes. That's going to lead to short fields, which is going to lead to points, which is going to lead to the Trojans covering this spread, dominating this game, and really putting their stamp on this season that they are back to relevancy.
Okay, let's end with this. I want to get your opinion as a former player. The tush push, a big topic here this week. The Eagles using it very effectively in their win against the Chiefs last weekend. They look to be offside on quite a few of them. So, a two-part question. First of all, where do you stand on the play? I have no issue with it. I think any team can use it if they want to. And someone could push back and say, well, every team doesn't have Jalen Hurts. I understand why a team like the Dolphins isn't going to use Tua for the tush push, or the Steelers with Aaron Rodgers, for example. And maybe this is a bit of a casual opinion, but what's stopping a team from using their running back, a fullback, a tight end to use a version of the tush push? It's not like it's a surprise that it's coming. So where do you stand on that opinion and as for the play as a whole?
Yeah, so I'll answer that one first of why not put your biggest, most athletic guy. It's just because getting that snap, it is hard to take a snap in general, but then there's also just the timing aspect. There really is a critical timing piece of being able to get a clean snap there under center and then secure the ball and then find the pocket to then fall forward. And I think what the Eagles are doing, they're almost is a tight end sneak, because when Jalen Hurts gets it, the tight end and the running backs come up and they push right away. So it's like a group effort, even though it's Jalen Hurts carrying it, it's a group effort to push. So it's probably just the snap mechanic issue that's preventing teams from doing something other than a quarterback. But I'd like to see it outlawed, man. I know that it's football and you shouldn't, it's the Eagles have this thing figured out and it's their right to call the play, but what was exposed this weekend was a great job by Fox's crew and Tom Brady. They're lining up off sides. They're jumping off sides. It's not the most exciting play. Like it's not a chess match at this point. I'd like to see that play outlawed, or you got to be careful about how you write the rules, because you don't want to outlaw quarterback sneaks. But I'd like to see the tush push outlawed and force the Eagles to adapt and try to find another way to do it. To me, it's really not exciting. It's a rugby play. It's a rugby scrum. My dad played rugby. My brother played rugby. That's really what it is. I've had enough of it. Credit to them. You guys did it. You're the first team to ever retire a play. Congratulations. We'll send you a plaque. But I'd like to see them get rid of that play.
Some rare disagreement between Jake and I. That's okay, though. It's
That's
football,
right.
People. It is a bit of a cheat code, though.
Yes.
Okay, Jake, we will leave it at that for today. Thank you very much for joining. Enjoy all the games this weekend, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week.
It's always a pleasure, man. What a great season it's been for football fans. Can't wait to have another good weekend this weekend.